Hi there! What we are going to talk about now are intents. So just let's get started. The first question: what's an intent? A quite ordinary question, in fact. When you hear an intent, think of it as an object that you can use to request an action from another application component. It can be an activity, a service, a broadcast receiver, or a content provider. So it's an object and it requests something from some of the other apps components. Next one. In which general cases can we use intents? Intents can be used when we want to start an activity, when we want to start a service, or when we want to deliver a broadcast. What's the difference between implicit and explicit intents? When you ask a specific component from within the app by name explicitly, you use an explicit intent. The most common example is the intent when you start a new activity. On the other hand, when an action is asked from another application, you don't specify it by name. So you use an implicit intent. Example: to load a web page via the URI of the object, to open the gallery, to load the camera. How it looks via code. The first one, we have the explicit intent. And when talking about explicit intents, you know it precisely well how it needs to be done. We are having a method in which we implement our switch between activities logic. So we are defining an intent, which is a reference to the intent object, and we are giving the parameters here. The first parameter is the class from which we start, or the context that we need to use, as shown here, and the second one is the class to which we want to be redirected, and from there we start the activity. So here everything is explicitly specified: the context from where we start and the activity we want to start. Explicit intent. On the other hand, we have the implicit intents. Examples: as we said, we have an intent which opens the gallery, and here we say just what action the intent should be doing, and we set the type that we want to be started. So we give as parameters the reference to the intent, our reference to the intent, and the code. But here you see there is nothing specifically defined. There isn't an activity which is called open gallery activity. You open the gallery based on what is available from within the application. Another question: what kind of information can be contained within an intent? There are various types of information that can be stored within an intent. For example, the name of the component to start. This is in the case we speak about explicit intents. We may store a string that specifies the general action to be performed. or the URI that references the data to be edited, loaded, or so on. We may specify a string with the category of the kind of component that should handle the intent, for example, launcher or browsable. We may specify the extras, a collection that to be filled with additional information, which information to be transferred from one intent to another. We may also add additional flags with extra instructions to the Android system. So if asked on an interview what kind of information can be contained, it's in fact enough just to enumerate it. Name, string, URI, string with a category, extras, flags. And from there on, if you are asked about something specific, to be able to explain it. Next question. What happens when there is more than one application that responds to your implicit intent? As in the case when we had, for example, Open Gallery. For example. So what happens? The user can select which application to use. The user can make this application the default choice for this action. For example, do always send this via email, or do always launch this and that browser. The other option is to show a chooser dialog for an option to the user to specify their choice every time. And here is how a chooser dialog looks like. You have for sure seen it already. For example, you have an application and there is an option to share some piece of information from within the app. So how can this one be done? Via any of these applications available within the telephone. What is the intent filter element? The intent filter element is an expression in the application's manifest file, which expression specifies the type of intents the component would like to receive. Each intent filter specifies the type of intents it accepts based on the intents: first, action; second, data; third, category. And here is an example for the default intent filter, which is generated once you use the default settings and create your main activity. Within the intent filter is specified the action, or this is the main, this is the entry point, and the category. The category is launcher. What is a pending intent? A pending intent is an object that wraps another intent. It can be also designed as a token that you give to a foreign application, and this token allows the other application to use your application's permissions. By giving a pending intent to another application, what you do is to grant the right to this other application to perform the operation you have specified, as if the other application was yours, initial one. And here is an example from real life, how you may think of a pending intent. For example, I want to have an apple, but I want to have an apple after I have had breakfast. So I have the pending intent to have an apple after some other actions are completed. You see, actually, my intent to have an apple wraps the other intent to have breakfast. That's the correlation and the way you may think of it. Next question. What is meant by intent resolution? By intent resolution is meant the handling of the implicit intent. When an implicit intent is designed to start, an activity is received. The system searches for the best activity for the intent and it checks several steps. It checks the action, checks the data, checks the intent category. This whole process of checking is called intent resolution. Next one. What is sticky intent? Last question for the section. Sticky intent. The sticky intent sticks with Android for future broadcast listeners. How you may think of it. For example, if battery low occurs, the intent gets stick to Android. And because it is stick, if one more time, for one reason or another, battery low occurs, then the intent will be triggered. Lovely. You're challenged to find further examples and to apply all your knowledge in practice. In fact, don't doubt to repeat this tutorial several times, because only on this way you'll be able to explain everything in your own way and to show your best in an interview. Good luck. See you in next one.